Franklin Delano Roosevelt, energetic, progressive, had been Wilson's Assistant Secretary of Navy and vice presidential candidate before infantry.
And today, we're going to be talking about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of the most beloved and enduring presidents in American history. But, before we dive into the life and legacy of FDR, let's start with a question. Have you ever wondered how a man who was diagnosed with polio and left paralyzed from the waist down could go on to lead one of the most powerful nations in the world for an unprecedented 4 terms as US President? Franklin D. Roosevelt, or FDR for short, was born into a wealthy and privileged family in Hyde Park, New York in 1882. He was educated in Groton, a prestigious boarding school, and went on to study at Harvard University. After graduation, FDR worked in a variety of different roles, including as a clerk in a Wall Street law firm and as an assistant secretary of the Navy. But it wasn't until 1921, when FDR was just 39 years old, that he was struck down with polio and left unable to walk. And it was at this time that many people thought that FDR's political career was over. But they were wrong. With the help of his wife Eleanor and a team of physical therapists, FDR slowly but surely regained some of the use of his legs. But despite his physical limitations, FDR refused to let polio defeat him. He used this as motivation to fight for the rights of people with disabilities and became an advocate for the establishment of the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, which was later known as the March of the Dimes, which helped people fund and support the research for the polio vaccine that everybody knows today. In 1928, FDR ran for governor of New York and won. And 2 years later, he ran for president and won that too. He was inaugurated as the 32nd President of the United States on March the 4th, 1933, at the height of the Great Depression. And so one of the first things that FDR did as president was to declare a national emergency and launch a series of ambitious public work projects, known as the New Deal, aimed at putting people back to work and getting the economy moving again. So famous projects like the Hoover Dam, LaGuardia Airport and the Bay Bridge were all part of FDR's New Deal investment. He also established several new government agencies, including the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Federal Emergency Relief Administration and the National Recovery Administration. FDR's New Deal programs were controversial at the time, with many Republicans accusing him of trying to turn the United States into a socialist state. But despite the opposition, the programs were popular with many Americans and helped to alleviate the worst effects of the Great Depression. And as if leading the country through the Great Depression wasn't enough,
Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air, President Roosevelt has just announced. The attack also was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
the United States was soon forced to enter World War II after the famous attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. FDR's leadership during this time was critical, as his fireside chats on the radio helped to maintain the morale of the American people. One of the most iconic moments of FDR's presidency occurred in 1942 when he travelled to Casablanca to meet with the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill to discuss strategy for winning the war. It was at this meeting that the two leaders issued the famous Casablanca Declaration, in which they vowed to accept nothing less than the unconditional surrender of the Axis powers. And so as the war raged on, FDR worked tirelessly to secure the support of the American people and Congress for the war effort. His leadership and charisma were instrumental in keeping the nation united and focused on victory. But as the war entered into the year 1945, the world was still recovering from the devastating effects of World War II. The US was a global superpower, and as president, Franklin D. Roosevelt was the face of the country. But little did the world know, FDR's health was actually failing rapidly, and his death was just around the corner. And so on the morning of April 12, 1945, Roosevelt was in Warm Springs, Georgia for a scheduled vacation. He was feeling fatigued and complained of a headache, but that afternoon he suffered a massive stroke and died within hours. And so the world was shocked, and the country was plunged into mourning. FDR had been president for an unthinkable 4 terms and had led America through its most trying times. And so thinking back, FDR's presidency didn't come without its controversies, but in the end, It's hard to argue that his leadership didn't make a profound impact on America and the world, because he had led the country out of the Great Depression and helped defeat the Axis powers. And so, if you enjoyed this look into the life of FDR, then subscribe to our channel to see more videos like this, where we'll explore the lives of some of the most influential figures in history. So, we'll see you next time.
I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds.
We choose to go to the moon, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.